and Kara?
Oh, what was it like, or what did I steal?
What did you take away? Yeah, what have you taken away from the series, either physically or?
Yeah, I mean, I think my answers are very similar to the ladies in that it was. I mean, for myself personally, it was a learning ground for me to be on a set of that magnitude and to be on a series that had that sort of fan base, because I had been on Canadian series before, like we talked about, but. It was stressful, but I think it really taught me quite a bit, and they were incredible shoes to fill as Supergirl. But I got friendships out of it, and I took a couple things. And I think, like we had said before, these conventions have actually brought us closer together. I mean, Alan and I never worked together. I think we've met once. So it's a chance to also communicate with actors that you never really would have had a chance to. But I did take my cuff, my Krypton cuff.
Yeah, awesome.
So,
very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So other people took things. Michael. He's right.
Hey, I just took from other people's trailers, and they don't know. But other than that,
What did you take from trailers?
Just
Erica.
Erica's got like a secret eBay account.
it's
Smart.
keeping me afloat.
Yeah, no, smart. Well, and shout out to Jeff Folkens, who asked, do you all keep in touch? You're all kind of like answering that as we go along. Alan, we've got Rachie Gurley in the chat right now saying that you are the best Aquaman. Such an interesting thing, because I think it was like 4 or 5 episodes that you did, but they were such big episodes. Justice, obviously one of the like fan favorite episodes, and we could see sort of the building of what of that universe. And then, again, Smallville, as people have always said, has ultimately led to what the Arrowverse is now. What was it like being part of that first kind of inception, if you will, of like TV superheroes and bringing them all together?
It's always bizarre to me to hear people enjoy my Aquaman time on the show, because this was the first thing I ever did. Yeah. So I walked on a set completely clueless, and I'm looking around trying to absorb as much as I can. And, you've got Rosenbaum like farting behind the desk during the scene. And I'm like, okay, farts are allowed. Farts are allowed. And then Tom, like, he doesn't know this, but he gave me a lot of really, there was a lot of great teachable moments without him even trying, about the industry and, how to sort of, a healthy perspective of the set and being on a show. And, it was such a learning experience for me. It was, I feel like I blacked out for those episodes that I was like, I don't remember much about that,
I remember because, I directed the episode, and I remember you did this thing where you had to walk out of the water, right? And I remember we were there off of Stanley Park, whatever it was, and you walked out of the water, and you kept walking, and the first AD was like, Tom, and I'm like, oh, cut. I'm like, walking out of the water. Like, I was enjoying this. Like, you look like I'm
you're good at putting people's mind at ease. I remember I didn't know. I started directing recently, and one thing that you said I carried with me into that experience where you were directing. I'm like, man, how do you do that? Like, how do you know all this? And you were like, you know what? You're surrounded by people who know what they're doing, and so you just kind of wait. And then right then the DP goes, so what do you think? I'm thinking like maybe a 35. We could do like a 50. Hey, I don't know. 35 sounds good to me. And you're like, uh-huh. And he walks up, good, 35. Okay, put on a 35. And he goes, see?
Glenn Winter, by the way.
Yeah. He goes, yeah. So, it's, it was an easy step, man, easy step to be part of. And then, of course, you're coming in playing a character that people already seem to embrace. So it has nothing to do with me or my work. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks. Sam, obviously you get to come on and portray, the show's all about beginnings, right? How all of these characters begin, how they start, what they go through before they take on their like form that we all knew and recognized from the comic. And that's why we were so into it and engaged. Same thing for Doomsday. Obviously, we all know Doomsday from the comics. He kills Superman. We see him as the big, kryptonite covered monster. But you come in as this human iteration of him. Again, later on in the series. Again, talk a little bit about approaching that character of Davis Bloom.
well, yeah, like no pressure. He's Doomsday, and I don't.
Yeah.
One of the funniest things is to try to go on set and menace Tom. And I'm 6'1". I'm like, yeah, sure, okay, I'll go. I've menaced people on television before. I'll go and I'll pick on him. And then I meet Tom, and he's like 6'4". So I'm like, hey, I'm going to get you. I'm just going to beat you up. And, you know, it was very funny to have Tom towering over me in every scene where we were having a confrontation, which I got a kick out of. I will say, speaking of what you take away from series and stuff, Tom was an awesome example of what you're supposed to do as the lead of a series, because he showed up every day chipper, in a good mood. We all have long days. We've all worked on stuff before. So you're like, yeah, he's in a good mood. We're all in a good mood. It's great. But then go on and do something where you're demanded to be in every scene every day and never have a day off.
Yeah.
I didn't do as well as Tom. I was a moody son of a bitch and I'm like, wow, how did Tom Welling do it? God, yeah, I'm disgraceful with my horrible mood. And I actually made, funny enough, I don't know if you remember this, Tom, I made a joke when we were doing our group photos for the series, for this, for season 8, and everyone's getting together and looking all, taking pictures for the show. And Tom was going to be in very briefly. They staged us around, and they would take all of our pictures and take ours. And then Tom was going to come in, and they were going to take him separately and Photoshop him in. And I remember making some dumbass joke of like, oh man, what? He's too good to come and do the photos with the rest of us and stuff like that. Some stupid joke, right? And people were like, and I remember that joke didn't catch on. Like, there were people who had been there for a while who were like, we're not going to go with this joke, Whitwer, And I remember just being like, oh, okay, well, And years later, on a series where I was the lead, we were all taking a Saturday, which again, the part of the story is we did that photo shoot on a Saturday, right? Well, then years later, I'm on a show where we're taking a Saturday to do a photo shoot. And the actors who weren't there every day were making jokes at me for complaining to be there on a Saturday. And here I am, like 16-hour days, haven't had a day off in months. And I'm just like, oh, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. And like, whatever, man, you should be grateful. You should be grateful. And I'm like, oh, this is my karmic payback for making fun of Tom Welling because Tom didn't get a day off. And like, what was it? I was told when you got on set that you took like 2 sick days in something like in 8 years, which is when I came on.
I had two sick days in 10 years. And I had to go, I had an opportunity, I think in season 7, to negotiate, I think it was 5 days off a year.
Oh.
Other than that, I was on set every day.
See, now, again, as much as you think you know what that means, you don't know what that means until you've been through something similar. And then you go, oh my God, how was Tom in a good mood all the time?
Well, I will say this, that one of the saving graces was that a lot of times the actor in the next scene that you're in can help you a lot by coming in with energy. That helps a lot. I was always looking forward to scenes, whether it's with Michael or Kristin or Laura or, Eric, anybody here. There were maybe a couple people I was like, this is a tough one.
Who were they? Who were they?
Spill it. I'm not going to say it. Normally, I fed off the energy of the person coming in to do the next scene with, because they were like, hey, what's up? I'm here. Michael's like, I've been in my trailer for 8 hours, but other than that, let's go.
But funny that you say that, because everyone is looking to you for the example. I'm not kidding when I say that I have often thought of you when I was maybe not on my best behavior. I've often been like, well, look, that guy did 22 episodes a year, and he was there every day. And he was
I'm glad that you think of me when you're in the depths of yourself.
Bad moods, right.
You're like,
I use you as an example to shame myself, if that makes sense.
You're like Newman.
That's funny, Tom. When I talk to like just different people on the podcast, like Jensen and Amel, they all go back to talking to you. They're like, I remember when Tom was doing this, and they gave you advice. I'm like, Tom gave you advice?
Yeah, I talked to all those guys at one point or another, and because I was a little ahead of most of them season-wise and stuff, and they were like, just ask, how do you do this? How do you do this? And you know what? Good for them to ask. You know what I mean? Because I remember it was like season 2 or 3 of Supernatural, and Jensen and Jared are like, we need to go to dinner. We're taking you to dinner. We're paying for it. Let's go. So we go to dinner, and they're like, dude, we're working all these nights. How can we not work nights? I'm like, Well, it's called Supernatural, and it happens at night.